Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Norfolk Conservation Commission. Today is October 9th, 2019. Please be aware that the meeting is being audio and videotaped. First on our agenda is 358 Main Street. Is there somebody here from? Yes, sir. We won't go into a lot of detail because it's being pushed back to you. There's a lot of things wrong. And the first one is a notification. We're not Norwood, we're Norfolk. And so that information is wrong. We appreciate getting one that is proper.
Okay.
And then there's all kinds of plan problems,
Okay.
which Janet will talk about.
Okay.
So, yeah, you don't have to, you can give a brief overview for people, but, yeah, we're not going to go too far because we'll continue it so you can make the corrections more on the plans.
Okay.
Is he doing the overview?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and give a quick overview of what's actually happening?
Sure.
This is,
I think you're all pretty aware of the horse track that's located there off of Main Street. So this project is going to be the relocation of the existing dwelling that's currently here, that's going to be raised for construction of a new building in there. So we're basically looking at a driveway, a single-family house, and a barn up in this direction here. If you want to pop to the next slide, Amy, please. So again, this is just more of a detail of the driveway coming in and the grading for the driveway. We're showing an erosion control barrier here where the yellow line is. This green line is the 100-foot buffer zone. This is the 50, and this is the edge of the wetland buffer.
okay. Which drawing would you like to work from, Janet?
I was working on the first sheet,
Sheet 1?
sheet 1.
Okay, come back.
Can you blow that up a little bit more up by the house?
Well, I mean, sheets 3 and 4 have this area here
Okay, you
at a
want to
20
go-
scale, so
Okay, go to,
go to 3 probably.
does that help us?
No, I want one.
She wants one.
No, it does the overview.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. No, zoom out, please. Is that zoomed out all the way? And Jim, it might help if you come over and see my wonderful coloring. And that's why I'm staying on the one sheet, because here's the way in, but way over there you've got the Mill River.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they have it marked about the flood zone over there. They didn't do the elevation, but also if you've got the Mill River, where's the 200 riverfront from the Mill River over on the left-hand side?
I know I had the riparian zones on there, but obviously you're not here for that.
Well, on this one, what happens is on these other pages. Oh, this one I got angry, so I made it better, sorry.
But,
But if you look at the next page, see how it's very faint?
Yeah, the elevation
And that's the
numbers are here.
200-foot riverfront.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
what
see,
are
if you
the,
go back to the front page, because you've got riverfront,
more of a construction?
Yeah, so
on
you've got riverfront on both sides.
This flag numbers,
Yeah.
no,
Okay, so my,
Yes.
number one, my whole thought is, if they moved the whole thing over a little bit, we wouldn't be in any jurisdiction and they wouldn't have to file with us.
Okay.
It's always a pleasure having you come in, but that was just, we're supposed to, because it is a new lot. So
Correct.
it's not grandfathered,
Correct.
because it's been split. Okay,
Right.
so then we would need the alternative analysis.
Okay.
you know, but in theory, they could move that whole thing over, get totally out of those resource areas. We didn't get the backup for the delineation sheets.
Okay, now that, basically this delineation was done for this entire parcel. And I was told that they're getting ready to submit this site plan. And they were talking about having whoever your consultant would be to review the line, to review all of it at the same time.
But this came in now, and we try to give the courtesy
Correct, no,
to
I
everyone.
totally
And
understand.
right, and another question: is this that area, little area that's gravel now?
No,
Recently.
what that's intended to be,
I know,
if you come out here, that's the typical crushed stone.
but is that what
entrance.
somebody recently put in at the
They
beginning?
may have,
Okay,
Okay.
because for this whole big property, it's like, where exactly is this location? I don't want to be wandering around out there with horses and electric fencing or
the
whatever.
horses are confined over here right now, you got a fence and everything, so the horses are up there. Like I say, if you do come in pretty much at the crown of the track going in and.
I've
and
never
there's-
been out there,
Okay,
so, okay.
there
okay.
are some stakes where the homeowner staked out that he wanted the house.
Okay,
So I had my guys go out, locate them, and then we positioned the house and the barn as best we could based on what he had staked out.
and even trying, and I know a lot of this is further than the 100 foot, so it didn't apply, but I was trying to,
Right.
okay, this is wetland, this makes sense if, this has
Yeah.
been, okay. But
You
then
swear
as
that
far
might
as
work.
what's wetland, what's upland, I was
There's a
just getting
river.
lost, but, our focus is
see.
really up here.
Right around there.
Right here.
But that's it, we don't have
Yeah,
the
the
backup
perennial
yet.
stream.
There,
It's
does
sort
it
of,
go
if they're planning on keeping it there, the
more than
alternative
200 feet?
analysis,
I mean,
'cause
less than 200
they're not
feet.
grandfathered, I don't see why they just don't move it, whatever, like
Well, just
50
so-
foot.
So that's what she's saying. It's what-
Yeah.
3,800 square
Or
feet
this-
over in the perennial stream. Oh, yeah, they can, I'll definitely have to run that by him. because
No,
they
I
want the
under-
house.
Either way, I mean, it's
Yes,
up
I
it's
That's
up
their
to the
call.
This is my
homeowner.
client, I can
Yeah.
get together with Janet to get a whole laundry
Sure.
list of all the things.
Okay.
Her suggestions, and then I can get with them and see what they want to do, and
Okay.
we'll get revised plans in.
Okay, and we'll continue it to the next meeting, and
Oh, but if we can see if we do have any abutters, there was only 5 abutters.
are any
on the list.
abutters here for 358 Main Street? Okay, does anybody have any questions about 358 Main Street? It's down by Camden Chemical and City Mill Pond, that, where the horses are in the racetrack. That lot is being all divided up, and there's a house going up on the top part of the property.
I'm wondering if they should resend a butter notification, where that first one said Norwood. I don't,
Probably, yeah, just to be sure.
there's only 5 people. Could they redo that? Oh, do you have that sheet with you that I can just give them, I'll give you my copy.
My copy, that one?
Oh, good.
I can come in and see you tomorrow morning, we can go over the whole.
Here.
list of
Oh.
things.
I gave him, I donated mine.
Okay. So I'll accept a motion to continue 358 Main Street to 7:10 on the next meeting of the November 13th.
I move to continue the 358 Main Street NOI 240-620 hearing to our November 13th meeting at 7:10.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it passes.
5, 6 to 0.
Thank you, Jim.
Oh,
No problem, thank you very much for coming this morning.
call it 9.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
next we have 19 Frederickson Road. Is somebody here for that? So we should, nobody's here for Frederickson, so we'll continue that to next meeting.
7:10?
What?
I'm just
The other
sure
one's
they're on
7:10.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll accept a motion to continue 19 Frederickson Road. until 7:20 on the 13th.
Move to continue the 19 Frederickson Road request for determination of applicability to November 13th at 7:20.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes. Okay, the next one is at 7:20. So Sam, our Eagle Scout, who's doing a project of putting new trails into Campbell Forest.
358.
It's under old business. Okay. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this
And-
is just,
I'm so sorry. Could just if you wouldn't mind
Oh,
using
pick
the
up.
microphone.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
so this is just a continuation, I guess, of my previous plan.
Yep.
Just includes that Miss DeLongo, she walked the trail, and I guess she approved of the path it took. And I've figured out that it should be around 3 bridges in the end.
Oh,
For
okay.
there's 3 different areas where it should be formal big bridges. Let's see. We'll paint some trail markers on trees as we go along the trail, and we're hoping to fix some maps that there are at the beginning of trails to fit the trail that we're putting in. We're gonna obviously continue just to try to avoid any big removal. We've just seen that small white pines there might be a few that are going to have to be removed here and there. And it'll still be 3 feet, about 3 to 4 feet. And we're hoping to start it soon, I guess, when EEE virus is not a threat anymore.
Okay. Yeah, Janet said she had some good trailblazers with her to walk the trail. How high are the bridges off the ground, do you think?
I think it should be about 5 to 10 inches, maybe, top. That's
Okay.
around there, not too high.
Okay.
Yeah, we went over the placement to make sure they're no higher than 2 feet, so we don't have to worry about building code of railings on a deck structure over 2 feet.
Yeah. Keep them, yeah, as low as possible. Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty flat for the most part. So where he's gonna put his bridges.
Okay. And-
What are the bridges gonna be made out of? What material are we using?
We're going to use pressure-treated wood, so it wouldn't rot when it gets wet out there or anything like that. And it's just going to be the cross kind of ladder pattern along with 2.
I was just looking at slip resistant. Is there any slip resistancy to it, or is it when it gets wet?
No,
Should be-
should be okay.
all right.
We can put those on after. You can buy them and apply them on the slip-resistant sheets. Okay.
I believe the last time we discussed this, Jim, you had mentioned that in one area where it slopes gradually up, there were going to be steps cut into.
Yeah.
Could you address that? What would that be like?
So there's this one portion at the very end when it connects to the rest of the trails there. It's a hill just going up maybe. It's not too steep of an angle, but you can see if it starts raining heavily, it's going to create kind of a gully in the middle of the trail just from water eroding away at it, especially if it's cleared. So we're just going to put in kind of almost dirt terraces that would just keep the dirt in place so that they just wouldn't end up all at the bottom of the hill. So there might be 3 of them along up to the top.
Did you just cut into the side of the
You
grade?
just cut in, and we might just put some big wood railroad ties or something right in there just to block the dirt and keep
So just like steps.
Yeah, kind of like steps.
Okay.
When Janet went out, she mentioned, she looked at it, and even though she doesn't like digging into stuff, it makes the best sense
Sure.
to get up there.
You don't notice it coming from Alice going up the hill, but coming, because I remember thinking, but coming down. You're coming down, it was all pine needles, you've got that kind of an
you
angle,
could
and there's
slip
a
on it,
slight
yeah.
tip, and I've been on places where you kind of slide inappropriately, so that would make sense, especially if you're gonna have people going up and down, you know, just to keep it safer for people too. Good idea.
Okay, good work.
That looks great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully we get a couple good frost and the mosquitoes are gone. Okay, it's 7:20, so we'll talk about 72B North Street. The applicant there?
I'm gonna put this up on the board. Oh, I don't have the brand new one, you just brought that.
So this is,
Almost the same. Yeah, you can put that over there. If you wanted to point out anything on the.
this abuts Stony Brook. Demolishing a house and much bigger.
See, that's what it looks like in relation to the flood areas.
Okay,
Good.
introduce yourself, please.
Yep. So my name is Rob Carlazon. I'm with Grady Consulting. We filed an RDA application for the raise and rebuild of an existing dwelling here at 72B North Street. So this survey was done 2 years ago. There's wetlands along the left side of the property line. The wetlands are associated with, I think it's Kingfisher Pond, I think is the official name of it. It's part of the Bristol State Reservation.
Yeah, like,
Is that
yeah.
Lake Reservation, yep. So basically, the main reason we're here, there's an existing dwelling, it's a little hard to see on here, but a portion of the existing house is within 100 feet of the wetland. The plan is to remove or raise the existing dwelling and build a new house. The new dwelling will be outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. We also have a new proposed septic system. All of those components are outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. So like I said, the only main reason we're here is because we're tearing down the existing house inside the buffer zone. We do have a proposed silt fence. It's sort of a dark black bold line. Again, a little difficult to see on this. Portion of, or pretty much all the proposed work, including the house and the driveway and the septic system.
What is the slope like there?
So most of the property is sort of, or this part of the property is up on a kind of a top of a hill. It's a pretty steep slope. Certainly kind of goes off the property here, but it's a steep slope.
And it's not basement, I think it's on the surface of the ground.
With Kingfisher being
So
on your
that's
left?
really,
Yep, with Kingfisher on the left.
really the only
Yep.
end. So I figure we're okay with the request, as long as we get up our option.
Janet?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
You're up.
Hi. Is this the plan that came in with the request for determination, or is this the new one?
That's the older one.
I think this is the original one we submitted. The only change we had, the Board of Health had one note where we moved a proposed septic pipe over about 5 feet coming out of the house, so
Is there any wetland impacts with that movement of that pipe?
no, there's not.
And so the erosion control is staying where it's showing on the plan?
Yes, that's
Coming all
correct.
the way around from way at the bottom up and around the,
Yes, that's correct.
do we have it, see my nice colored orange? Okay, so no, because it's more of whatever they're doing on the top of this hill, just to make sure
Gotcha.
it doesn't go down, down that hill, down to the resource areas, so. And it's just really the corner of the house, and I think there's no basement on that house, right?
I think there was a partial walkout basement.
But it's not gonna be like major, so erosion control will be fine?
Right,
Protecting
yes.
okay.
Yep, that's correct.
That's why I thought that doing this form would be okay. The main thing is, you're showing that erosion control on the plan, so that's the main concern for us,
Yep.
That's the only place, just that little corner up there is the only place they're even in that 100-foot buffer zone, so,
Yep.
yeah.
Is the silt fence okay? Or
Yeah.
should, no hay bales anywhere?
No, that should be, they're saying, I think, a proposed silt fence.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Silt fence, limit of work.
Okay.
But it's hard, sorry, but they're starting way down here, all the way around where the septic is, all that stuff curling all the way up to the top, so, it's encompassing everywhere that they're gonna be working, so there shouldn't be any issues.
Okay. Does any member have a question?
We'll have it
Just
for
one,
them.
the access to the house during the demolition, any equipment, it would be going in an existing driveway and not near the 100-foot buffer, or
Yep, so the access to the property is off Johnston Way here. Although the property lines show a cul-de-sac, it's really just a road that just ends, and it kind of just turns into, there's an existing driveway now. It runs up through here, and then up to the existing house. So that's the main route of access. Yep.
Anybody else?
The silt fence, is it a tube-type sock fence, or is it hay with stakes driven in with a fence?
Yeah, I think this one, it's the wooden stakes driven
Wooden
into the
stakes driven
ground
through.
with the fabric
Fabric, okay.
running,
Right
No.
in.
stake through it.
Okay.
Just follow on that.
Yeah. All good? So
Hmm?
can we do a
'Cause these things-
determination, Janet?
And I had, right, and I had the forms, there was 2 forms. The whole, if you could just give us a little
Yeah.
time to find the form.
Okay.
Thank you.
So she has,
We either had a rubber band on.
did a form,
but they were-
because she figured this would go through, so. It was in their notes, too. There's a number 3.
Or whatever. 19 credits on this. So just, same with this one had a form. Oh, see, this one's here.
Oh, they both look at me?
This is 19 Frederickson.
Yes, you have all the packets. You have to check this.
You can peek. Oh, this is just 19. I didn't do anything for these.
I know, I would have been attached to that instead.
Well, it can't do anything.
Ta-dum!
Oh, yeah, okay. Pass it along, yeah. Okay, so Janet filled out a determination of applicability. It's Number 3.
Suggest -3. Work described is within the buffer zone, but will not alter an area subject to protection under the Act, therefore does not require filing of a notice of intent.
Okay.
My suggestion.
So, if everybody's good with that, I'll accept a motion for,
Do we have any?
72. 72B North Street.
go ahead.
We didn't ask.
Oh, we have
Has any questions?
Okay, does anybody in the audience have any questions? Okay, we need to close first, right? So make a motion to close, somebody.
I move to close 72B North Street hearing.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So now that it's closed, we can mark the 3. Here's the go-to tonight.
Described as within the
Are you use
buffer.
your pen, please?
Yeah.
Or do I have to sign? Just right here?
No, you're not signing
Oh.
yet. You have to, we have to make a motion to have that.
What am I?
It's a determinative application for 72B North Street.
I move to allow the determination of applicability for 72B North Street.
And it's a negative,
-3.
In-
correct? Negative 3.
Negative
number
determination number 3.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passes.
That form will be ready tomorrow morning if somebody wants to come pick it up, and if not, then we'll mail that out.
I don't see you signing.
That works. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck on the project.
Big project.
Could I please use your pen? Thank you.
Okay, 7:30, I don't see, we're going to go into 144 Seekonk Street. We're not doing the enclave tonight. That's still, we're waiting to hear from the applicant on that. And we'll do the 9/11 minutes we can do now. Is everybody read them? Good evening, Ted. Is Chris coming, or?
Yes, it's just about.
Oh, okay. We're just going over some minutes, and once he's here, we'll start. Let me know when you're done with the 9/11 minutes, and we'll...
I'm all set with it.
Okay, accept a motion to, if they're correct, motion to accept.
I move to accept the minutes of the November 11th meeting.
Second?
September 11th,
What did I say?
November.
Oh,
September 11th. Sorry.
second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? It passes. Okay, let me get my stuff. All right, 144 Seekonk Street. Mr. O'Hart and his attorney, Chris Agostino, were grateful enough to come tonight, along with some experts. So, what we wanted to do tonight was basically just talk, we got the Ecotech report that you gave us at the September 25th meeting. Is that the only report that you're going to give us regarding what the findings were from Pat Gardner?
That's all I have at this point. We haven't received anything from the more current evaluation.
Right.
Yeah, I would note, and Christopher Agostino, counsel for the O'Harts, I would note I followed up with Attorney Hill and I asked for Mr. Garner's underlying notes, whether he had all the soil profiles that were associated with
Yeah.
his test pits. He didn't have any. He says he has chicken scratch from the field, and that wasn't shared with us. So we have nothing else to respond to.
Okay.
As far as the Garner reports, they belong in the trash. There's
Well,
nothing left there.
we won't go
There's really
there.
nothing left there.
We won't go
So
there.
there's
We
nothing to
paid
respond to.
We understand you question his methodology and the findings, but we have to stand by it because the town paid for it. We have to interpret what he's saying along with what you're saying is wrong with the report and what your findings might have been. But yeah, we don't have any new information. So what we were looking to do basically then is just continue this to.
Well, we do have new information. So
What,
are you privy to the beta soil evaluation that was conducted last Thursday?
no.
Does anyone talk to anyone?
We haven't received anything yet. I thought it was going to be a couple of weeks from now.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
let me, would you mind if I just spoke freely for a moment? I always do,
Please,
so I think I
please.
might just go right ahead. You know, when we left the last hearing,
Yes.
okay, we said that we were going to share some of our soil test results that we were going to do under the ZBA's jurisdiction as part of the 40B process. And we said we would share that soil evaluation, okay? So during the ZBA hearing, all right, we announced that we were going out to do soil testing, and I got an email the next day from Attorney Hill saying, hey, the ZBA wants their wetland scientist to come out and accompany you on those soil tests and do their own independent investigation on this area that Mr. Garner identified, okay?
Yeah.
So we said, hey, this is what we've been asking for from the beginning, all right? If you're going to do it under the ZBA's jurisdiction, have at it. We filed an application. This would be an independent investigation. If you pay for it, by all means, have at it. And the other indication was we discussed the fact that Mr. Garner used a soil boring instrument rather than a shovel.
Right.
And the proper way to investigate these types of allegations is to get a nice, clean, crisp cut soil profile so that you can see what we're talking about. So we said, sure, if someone wants to come up with the ZBA and do that investigation, as long as our experts could be there to witness it,
Sure.
we'd be fine, because we figured that they'd look at it. And as a matter of fact, at the ZBA hearing, the comment was made, we'll know tomorrow when we go and open up some holes and look at the soil. So we invited the experts that the ZBA identified. Weren't going to throw up a fuss about qualifications, experience, or otherwise. And they went out and they did their own investigation.
Did they use a spade?
No, they didn't bring a shovel to
Okay.
get the hole started, essentially. They brought a spade, but it was the wrong tool to get started. So they said, let's use the excavator that was on site. So they dug in with the excavator, and they dug 3 test pits, okay, that have since been profiled and evaluated. When our experts were standing there looking at the hole, we said, yep, great, done, let's move on, nothing to see here, we've proven that this is all a charade, okay, as was evident from the vegetation that indicated all upland vegetation, so let's move on. For the first hour, the beta soil scientists or the beta soil evaluators wouldn't talk to us, all right? There was no communication to have a discussion about, let's see what our findings are, let's see if we can maybe come to some consensus as to whether or not
I
there
don't
might
know
be.
what their instructions
Well,
were.
who is poisoning the well on this, okay? I figured this board would have known, which we've been asking for the last 5 days. What is Beta's conclusion? You can conclude immediately by looking at those soils that there is nothing to see here.
Yeah, we haven't received any report.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem. We have our report tonight. We brought our soil scientists. If someone had said that there was nothing to report, we wouldn't have come. It costs money for me to be
Oh,
here.
of
It costs
course.
money for Mr. Rockwood to be here.
Yes.
No one will talk to us. Why is that the case? Why won't anyone talk to us?
I don't know. I had a late afternoon conversation with Janet to go over really what we were going to do tonight, and we pulled out the Ecotech letter and basically wanted to say, okay, if this is the only thing we know about the beta test, or the test that took place last week, and we're supposed to get a report, until we get that report, yeah, we have nothing.
We don't need a report. We need a soil profile.
Right.
Mr. Wilson could look at the soil profile and tell you right off the bat.
Okay, but we
There's
need to-
nothing there. So Mr. Rockwood can testify to this board tonight, okay?
Okay.
And this board will have no other evidence other than Mr. Garner's report and a professional soil scientist who will tell you tonight that there's nothing there.
Okay.
And why there's nothing there. Now, give me a second, okay?
Okay.
I would like this board to make a determination based on the fact that there's nothing there and kick it back to the ZBA. All right, the ZBA engaged the expert. Beta is operating under their jurisdiction. All right, let them have at it. We will deal with this at the ZBA, which is their jurisdiction. You know, Attorney Hill must be doing something right. I've appeared at the Concom twice now. I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
This is Chapter 40B. There's supposed to be one hearing before one board. But there's been zero communication. I'm not allowed to email this board. You know, you guys are represented by counsel, so I can't email you. We submitted a pile of information at the end of the last hearing. So you say Mr. Garner's report, there's nothing else to evaluate. Did the board take the time, or sorry, did the commission take the time to look through the materials that we had submitted to see the history of the site, to see the aerial photographs, to see the emails from the zoning board to Dan Hill and the town planner saying, oh, all we need is, I'm paraphrasing. I don't want Attorney Hill to accuse me of lying again. I'm going to paraphrase documentary evidence that you can read for yourself.
Yeah.
But what I take away from that is, we'll have one evidentiary hearing, issue an enforcement order, and that's our best case scenario.
Okay.
All right? So that type of stuff makes me concerned. That should be the end of it. So we've come here, we have Mr. Rockwood here. Would you at least hear Mr. Rockwood's?
Oh, definitely. We want to know the truth. We want to know what Mr. Rockwood is saying about it. We do need Beta's our peer review.
Beta's the zoning board's peer review expert.
Well, yeah, the town's peer review.
Nope.
The ZBA's.
Nope.
The ZBA's.
Yes.
Peer review.
Yes.
Of what
And
happened
they can
out
submit to the ZBA, and the ZBA can take whatever action they
Right.
want under their jurisdiction. If this board wants to act on that, then, you know, that's something that we can sort out in on the court cases, but I'd rather not. You know, the evidence
Yeah,
is
we
there.
need to get to a conclusion, and that's
I
what
agree. I
we're
agree.
trying to narrow down to. So, yeah, let's hear what you guys found.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rockwood.
Well, Dan, did you have something you wanted to say quickly?
Sure. I don't agree with the characterization that there's been no communication. I've had actually several emails back and forth with Mr. Agostino over the last 3 or 4 days. I've kept him apprised of what's going on the site. I emailed with him today mentioning that Marty Nover was actually going back to the site this afternoon to look at the property, to look at the area that her associates witnessed last week. I told Mr. Agostino that as soon as a report would come in from Beta, that I would share that with him. So I don't understand what he means by no communication.
Okay.
There's been ample communication from my office, and with respect to communicating, for him to communicate directly to the Conservation Commission, he knows that that's not appropriate since he's sued you guys over this exact matter. So his client is free to communicate as much as he wants with this
Right.
commission.
Right. Okay, let's give it to the doctor. No, Chris, let's go to the technical people. Thank you. Do you have any slides or anything, or is it just, okay? You have any written for us that we can read, or?
Again, we didn't know what was happening tonight other
Okay.
than discussion. We
Okay.
were prepared to respond to Beta. We were told Beta would at least give us a soil profile or the photos that they collected. They've given us nothing.
The
5
ZBA, I
days.
think, was hoping that they would have a draft report by now, but they
Let's
don't.
get the raw data. Share the
Yeah.
raw data. Because our raw data says there's nothing to see here. Actually, Mr. Wilson.
Oh, sure.
What I have here first.
Hmm?
At the same time I have.
Okay, go, why don't you start, and then Amy will come back with copies for everybody, so.
Okay. Here
Thank
for the
you.
record, my name is Dr. John Rockwood. I'm a Chief Environmental Scientist at Ecotech. I have to say, I was not at the site last Thursday. I was simply provided with information that was collected by Dan O'Driscoll, who's a certified soil evaluator. He basically documented the same test pits Beta documented.
How deep were the pits?
Dave Crossman was there. He can provide some of that,
Yeah, but
some,
Ted, what
some
do
of
you-
what happened out there, but I can go through what.
Yeah,
these
but first,
actually mean.
so the commission knows, you had an excavator out there. Yeah, borrow his mic for a minute.
The Andrews 2022, which was one of the original deep test holes, which is, we also have a plot plan so you can see, so there's some reference for the board. It's all in area 2. So deep test pit area 2022 was approximately 130 inches deep. Stopped digging around 48 inches to let the scientists do their evaluation, and then we proceeded on down. The other two, Beta 1, was, I'm going to say roughly, it's a 50,000 pound machine, so it probably 4 foot wide, 4 foot cubes were removed from the soil.
Yeah.
So, and then Beta number 1 was 4 foot cubed, and Beta number 2 was 4 foot cubed.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
The results, we also had an independent observer from Tetra Tech there, Sarah White,
Yes.
who will corroborate our results as
Okay.
well. So we had an independent observer.
Okay, and David Crossman was there, and he actually witnessed what the Beta
Everything,
Group
okay.
personnel were actually doing.
Okay.
Now,
So-
all three of these test pits on the area of concern, or are they off to the sides?
All
Will you take
all
one of
directly
those?
in it or on the fringes of it. So there is a plot plan there.
pass it down.
Yeah, well,
It's on the back page of the report you just received.
My recollection was that the comment that was made was at the last hearing that Mr. Wilson wanted to get a sense of the soils in the area generally. So you wanted a swath through that area, one
Right.
across. So
so that, because if you look at, well, you could explain it without, what you,
So all within 100 feet of each other. 3 holes in this here, slightly offset, maybe 160 degrees. And 100 feet, 110 feet of each other.
And there's that
the
dashed
center one,
line.
Beta number 1, which is the center, test pit is exactly 15 feet from Dan O'Driscoll's 2006 historic test results, which you received a week ago. So it's, and that is no.
Okay.
So basically, we have 3 soil test pits that were done. They were excavated with an excavator, and Dan O'Driscoll and Sarah from Tetra Tech evaluated the same soil test pit as the personnel from Beta Group. And basically, what they did is they went into the pit, cleaned the surface with a spade, and documented the soil depths, profiles, horizons, colors, redoxymorphic features with their colors and dominance, and that's what's provided on these forms for these 3 pits. And at our office, we have a certified professional soil scientist and a registered professional soil scientist who reviewed these, and basically the conclusion is none of these soils are even close to being hydric soils. Basically, when you get to the B horizon, the B horizons are too bright. They're not gray enough is another way to say that, and the features are not given the matrix color, the features that are there aren't relevant to determining whether they're hydric soils or not. So that's true for all three of these profiles. The first one, Beta 1, they went through 9 inches of fill material, then through 3 inches of organics into an A horizon, and then the B horizon was documented. There were actually 2 B horizons, and both of them were fairly bright. In the Beta 2 hole, again, they went through 14 inches of fill into 2 different A horizons, into a B horizon, then into the C horizon. The B horizon is very bright at a 5.8. That's a very bright soil. So that's clearly an upland soil. So I believe these 2 beta holes were dug where beta wanted them excavated.
Yes.
Okay, and the third one
The
was
third one was a prearranged, about 10 days in advance with Tetra Tech for part of the 26 test pit.
Oh, okay.
so that's the one that was outside of the area, and that's
Yeah.
clearly an upland profile. There's not even a question.
There's for
about the third
wastewater?
one.
Yes, wastewater.
Yeah. It's 2022.
So correct me if I'm wrong, so the first and the third are on the outsides and the second's in the middle?
Yes. It goes in order. It's Andrews.
Beta 1 is in the middle of area 2.
Yes.
Beta 2 is to the south of that, and 2022 is to the northeast of that. So two of them are in the fill area, or the alleged fill area, and the other one is outside of the fill area.
So, so when you look at there's a couple of things. So you look at, first one has 9 inches of fill, second one has 14 inches of fill. First one, 9 inches of fill to organic layer. The second one, 14 inches of fill to loam. Just for point of reference, how could we tell that just because it's fill, and I think this is kind of where we're at, what was there before the fill?
I believe the fill was just placed on top of the soil that was
So
there
you
before.
think that, so you think the first 9 inches of the first one, the fill was placed on top of what would be a normal profile with organic, the sill loam, sandy loam, sand, and that would be the typical profile if it were untouched?
There was root mass all through the organic layer. Roots still.
If you look at the 2022 hole, that also doesn't have an organic layer. So whether there's an organic layer or not, it could still be the same forest. It still could be a natural profile that was untouched before the fill was placed.
I think what we're looking at, and we've been trying to get a handle on with some overlays in these test pits, is where does the actual zero start, and where are we at in an actual profile? So if you dug a hole, and then put in fill, then the first 9 inches may be missing. Whereas another, if you filled 9 inches on top, you're not getting to the head layer until 9 inches. And that's what we're trying to, where we want, or I want anyway, is to get an idea on exactly where these test pits are, what the soil profile is, what the natural soil profile is, an estimate, and then to be able to go through and say, okay, we can see that 9 inches was removed because it's on top of the organic layer. But on the second one, there's 14 inches removed with fill on top, at least, to get the loom. So the question is, what was above the loom if it's fill now?
You didn't excavate when you put the fill in. You simply just pushed material over the top of the existing soil.
right next. The excavated hole, was basically 2.5 feet from the edge of beta number 1.
Okay.
So that's the area that we had the back and forwards about this week.
This is about
refill.
where Garner
This is the Garner area.
area.
This
Okay.
this is.
So he pulled his shovel out, or his
Soil auger.
the auger. Which profile do you think he was looking at when he pulled it out, or what you saw from those brightly, I think they were sort of brightly colored soils?
He was between beta 1 and beta 2. He was actually next. Some of his photos, if you can pull up his photos, Amy, you'll be able to see the 2 large boulders and that'll be a reference point. The boulders are referenced on that plan from Andrews.
To me, it's built for,
You want original.
You want from the presentation or from the report?
Do we have that?
But it's where he was doing the.
Do we have, is there a place that they can get that though?
I think that might,
Okay.
I think, well, see, I think.
It's all area I think photographs, yeah, mate.
First one.
Alex, do you have any comments?
One more.
Fred?
Back up, one more.
Plugged out of one spot, put in the other, so you don't.
So right here,
Okay.
so approximately this flag is where beta number 2 was, and right here is beta number 1. And right, if we can get it, there's actually two large boulders that are noted on the plan right in this area.
But what, blow it up a little?
Well, no, it's not, it's just off the picture.
So what kind of material, just for sake of argument, was on beta 1 and that fill, that 9 inches of fill? What type of, was it mainly organic layer, was it a silt layer?
Sand.
It was sand fill.
Sand from the hole.
It's from the area that we smoothed out this week, and there was some concern about regrading that area, so you may have seen some emails from Attorney Hill. Mr. O'Hart had rented this equipment and wanted to finish last week. At the end of the day,
If we look at the profile from the historic hole, you'll see that the bottom 5 feet is sand. So there's 2 or 3 inches of organic material in this area. Then there's about 2 feet of extremely large boulders with gravel. And then once you get onto that 2 or 3 feet, then you hit sand. Pure white sand like you buy in a masonry shop. And it's as deep as you go with the machine. So if you look at the historic profile, you'll see exactly what the soil was and where the sand came from. And
so I mean, to show you again,
06
Amy,
test
do you have the hand sketch plan that Mr. Garner? If you go a little farther down. No, sorry, I think it's farther down. Oh, is it up? No.
This one? Not that?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not the Sandy, because Sandy would mean that was.
Sketch map.
Yeah, so
Actually, there's
Yeah.
the rocks. There.
that other picture was good, but
So there's the boulders. So I'm gonna speculate based on the plan. The boulders are on your plan from Andrews Engineering tonight. So the test pit, the historic test pit 206 is right in this area.
Okay.
Beta number 1 is right here. Andrews 2022 is right here. And beta number 3 is right around this area. Oh, sorry, number 2. The third hole is right here.
And where's the
And this
first-
rock is your reference point. You should have the rock on the plan. And then you'll be able to line it up. So the boulders are. This is a boulder the size of a truck. It's massive. Number E would be the existing test pit from 2006. And if you look at those historic soil logs, you'll see that when you get down about 3.5 feet, it's pure white sand with nothing bigger than an apple.
So all the,
So all the fill in this area is from this excavated hole. I pushed the rocks over, removed the sand, bedded this up with sand and gravel to get down, because there had been no original road down to this area. In 206, 207, they had headed up the hill towards the top of the property. Our interest was in going to the south of the property next to Axberg's cattle to get our test basin, detention basins on the, I don't know if it's the south end of the property or whatever, across the wetlands or above the wetlands on that extreme end. So there had been no trail cut through here. I removed probably 7 or 8 trees. They're still stacked right here. When you take out a tree with a 4-foot root ball, 5-foot root ball, there's a hole. Dug out the sand, put it here, made my path. I didn't get a chance to backfill this track. So, but historic 206 soil logs are right there for you to look at.
Yeah, so basically what we did is we took the 3 test pits that were excavated and independently documented them. And Sarah from Tetra Tech also has this data, and she can provide that data. This is the data that came from Dan O'Driscoll.
Okay.
And he and Sarah worked together, and the two people from Beta Group worked together. They didn't
Okay.
interact.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, if you're looking at the fill area, that's why I was asking what the fill was, because if you're missing, the soil that we're looking for, or someone's looking for, say a hydronic soil, you would find it in the fill material that would be on top of the first one, on top of the organic layer, because the organic layer would be the first natural course of soil.
It's
So
all sand.
if we're, that's why I'm asking, whatever was dug out, because it's obvious, because it's fill on top. So if that came from, say, side bankings, and the material that you wouldn't use for a road was pulled out, which might have been what was holding, I'm just saying.
Right, so to go back, and this is a misnomer from the beginning, there was never the building of a road, all right? Initially,
Just stating.
but no material was taken out. As Mr. O'Hart noted, he moved the material from one spot and smoothed out a trail in the other, and the purpose was, no one had gone south previously, so there was no trail there to get equipment on. We wanted a roundabout so that we could easily bring equipment in and out to complete soil tests. That's what triggered this entire thing. And there's been confirmation bias from the beginning, okay? And confirmation bias is simple. If you are told that something's there, you're going to go out and you're going to look for it, and you're going to see what you were told was there. So when they were told there was road building, when they were told there was major clearing, there's confirmation bias. Just like when Beta's associates went out, I got on the phone with them because initially they wouldn't speak with anyone. So we said, wait a second, this wasn't the intent. So I called Dan. Dan was actually kind enough to get on the phone and say, no, they should be able to collaborate and share the results. And but in that conversation, they said that this was a ponded area and that there was a stream here, all right? This was never a ponded area, okay? No ponded area. So I don't know where that misnomer came from. But whatever results they have, which, again, why weren't we shared the soil profile before tonight? They might have a report, but why are they behind the scenes in the dark toiling to come up with this report that they're going to spring on us at some point? If we had a hearing tonight, we would have requested the courtesy of knowing if the report was going to be available. We were told it was going to be available Monday. Wasn't Monday, Tuesday. So naturally, we heard there was a hearing tonight. Dan informed me he was going to be here. So if Dan's going to be here, we figured we'd bring all our experts.
Sure.
We were told at the last hearing before this board that you were keeping an open mind, that you were working in good faith.
Yep.
Good faith requires some minimal amount of sharing as to what's going to happen at a hearing.
And oh, definitely. Dan, did you have any updates from Beta? I saw you texting or.
So I don't have any updates tonight. My understanding was that I was going to get something today. It didn't happen. Marty was on the site. She came back. I haven't talked to her since she came back. So I would recommend that this commission continue the meeting for another week or 2 weeks, whenever your next meeting is, and by then we'll have Beta's report.
What was she looking at? Because the hole was filled in.
She's looking at the site?
Yeah.
I think she wanted just to get a feel for the lay of the land. I mean, she wasn't there. Her associates were there, and I think she was in the neighborhood, and so she figured she'd stop by, and I don't know how long she was there.
No, again, we said she's more than welcome under the ZBA's jurisdiction. They have a permit before them, so she was in the neighborhood. We said, go for it.
Okay.
Which is why we figured that if you dig a hole, unless we had 6 inches of buried organic wetland vegetation and 4 inches of nice gray hydric compressed with, what do you call them, the oxyrhizomes?
Oxymorphic features.
That one. We figured if you had a lot of that, then you might have a question. But we opened 3 holes out there, and we're sitting there looking at them saying, there's nothing to see here. Why are we even having this conversation? We were told at the hearing before the ZBA we'd know tomorrow, yet someone's toiling behind the scenes
I hope not manipulating data to produce a result, but I am
Okay.
extremely skeptical at this point as to what might come back before this board or other boards, given other things I've seen in this case to date.
Okay.
So,
I think in fairness, we should get some kind of a decision, at least move it back to the ZBA. I've spent thousands
Yeah.
upon thousands up there to be chasing me tail. This is not fair.
Janet, what you say? With,
Janet has been on site 10 times and has never
Again,
questioned this particular area.
we've yet to hear, she was there before
Indeed, Peter was
any
up there.
excavation, before anyone was up there. If there was any sniff of extensive wetland indicator plants that would have indicated a wetland, then maybe you say, well, let's do a form on that, let's do a count. But it wasn't even an issue. There's one wetland on site. It's in the middle of the site. It was not until Mr. Garner, and we all know at this point what's in Mr. Garner's reports, okay?
Right.
So this investigation is based on that report. It was based on faulty information to begin with. So whatever comes out of that is tainted. It's tainted from there on out. So
Okay.
if the ZBA wants to chase this, they can chase it.
okay.
At least we're in front of one board.
Janet, what are you thinking?
And I hate to make it sound like we don't have communication with other boards. I'm not sure what ZBA wetland people are looking at. I thought I was under the impression, right or wrong, that they were checking, I thought, bylaw and state resources or not there. But again, we
And
haven't.
what was their charge?
What was whose charge?
Beta, under ZBA.
Beta has been hired to be the wetland peer reviewer for the zoning board's review of the comprehensive permit application.
Both state and local?
No, local, because they've asked, the applicant has asked for waivers from the local bylaw.
Right.
There's also wetlands in the site. There's a wetland in the middle of the property. So the zoning board determined that it would be appropriate to have a wetland scientist to advise the zoning board as to potential impacts on that wetland that's undisputed.
Wetlands on site generally.
The reason that Beta was out there last week was just a coincidence that they were doing test pits anyway. Sarah White was out there anyway from Tetra Tech. And so as a courtesy, frankly, to the applicant, we said, well, why don't we have Beta go out there, look at these soils so that the applicant could have a peace of mind that somebody independent, not Mr. Garner, since obviously Mr. Garner is not popular with the applicant, that somebody independent of him would actually evaluate this. So I'm surprised that Mr. Agostino is now casting aspersions at Beta, suggesting that they're toiling in the back room trying to manipulate
Oh,
data.
yeah, let's not
I think
even go
it's-
there.
I don't know. I don't know
Chris,
what's
No, let's not go there. We're
Right,
just
not
waiting
in-
for Beta's report.
We
know,
haven't
we
gotten
know-
anything.
Hypotheticals at this point.
But just to clarify, the question was, why was Beta out there on last Thursday, okay? It was to do the investigation that Mr. Garner tried to do correctly. So they were supposed to go out with a shovel and spade and dig a handhole and create a soil profile. So their
Was
charge
that
on-
under the direction of the ZBA?
Correct. It
Oh,
was under the
okay.
direction of the ZBA, and we agreed, and it was an independent investigation for the ZBA. Now, clearly, we knew that whatever happened would get shared with this board, okay? But they went out there with the charge on Thursday to specifically investigate the Garner area and do a hand-dug soil profile. That never happened. They didn't do a hand-dug because they didn't bring a shovel. And I asked whether they were going to cut and do a soil profile, and they said they did, but then Mr. Crossman indicates that they were just swiping at the side of the soil profile with their hand, so they didn't get a nice cut. But regardless, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's nothing there on those pits, okay? But that was their charge. I think what I'd like to hear, again, the board has a conservation agent. She was there before any excavation or filling or alleged road building or whatever you want to call it was done. There were no wetland indicator plants there that would have warranted further investigation. Had there been, someone would have said, hey, throw a form on this one. Because Tetra Tech, when they did the original wetland review, said, well, there's some allegation of wetlands upsite. Now, Dan's going to argue, well, it wasn't that far upsite. But they said, hey, do an indicator plant survey on this area. We did as part of the response, and that was indicated. So what did the area look like when it was walked multiple times by people that were not out looking for a result or have confirmation bias, whether it's implicit or explicit? And I'm not, again, we agreed with Nova Armstrong. Okay, they've been around, they know what they're doing. Marta is tons of experience. You know, I wish Marta was on site, maybe. She has a little more experience in these types of disputes.
Okay.
But the point is, you know, if you are told there's a pond there, then implicitly it's natural human tendency. There's confirmation bias. And again, we haven't seen the results, which is why we wanted the soil profiles. We could have given them to Mr. Rockwood. They have the soil profiles. They definitely have them. Why did we have to wait for the report? Why do we have to wait for the report? I don't understand why that courtesy wasn't extended.
Okay. Janet?
That's when David and I were talking today, but it was the point of, to keep it simple, that there was concerns of violations out there. So hence, hiring a consultant to go out to check to see if they thought there was violations, and here's Mr. Garner's report. So now waiting for feedback from, it's nice we got some stuff from you. We don't have anything from the ZBA people yet, because it's not a filing with conservation, you know, from any of the wetland people or whatever, as far as what have they found or not found, just so this can someday be wrapped up.
The only question I have
We
is,
haven't heard-
what did we see, what did you see on the property before the fill? You walked this area before
No,
the fill.
but, no, we're
Mr. Chairman, is it really
2019
appropriate
here.
for
No.
Mr. Agostino to be cross-examining your
No.
agent?
You
isn't
talked to
a,
me, but yeah, you're not recognized, either of you. Thank you, Jan. Anybody have questions,
I think we have-
I'd
concerns?
like to see the beta report, and then I think we can make an informed decision.
At that point in time.
When do we think you're gonna get that?
I don't know. I can follow up with her tonight. I tried calling her at 5 o'clock this afternoon. She wasn't in her office. So I was expecting it today, and I'll call her tomorrow morning.
What we'll do is, soon as we get the report, we'll make notice. You have to 7-day notice for the meet, 3-day notice for the meeting?
If you want to set up a meeting, 48 hours.
Just 48 hours, okay,
It has to be posted 48 hours in advance.
okay. We'll find out, get a quorum together, meet rapidly within a few days of getting that report, and then we'll probably do it, yeah, and then we'll have a meeting. We'll get the report, we'll analyze it ourselves individually, and then we'll come to the meeting and and you'll already have the report.
May we have the soil profiles?
That,
Why is
Steve-
council the gatekeeper on this? Who's driving this? Is it Hill Law? Is
no,
Hill Law
it's the
driving this?
ZBA.
Oh, the ZBA is driving this. Well, I know, but
We'll ask,
okay,
we'll
no,
ask
so-
that, we'll ask that question, Chris.
But just may we have, but, okay, thank you for asking that question.
Okay.
I would like to say that I think it's, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for asking that question. I don't see any reason we wouldn't get their soil profiles.
You should get the data like
Number two,
what you've
through the
shared.
chair, I apologize for acting as though I was cross-examining anyone, but you have access to a town employee who was on site, who walked this area, and I've yet to hear any advice to this board as to what was there before this area was smoothed out.
She's reserving herself at this point. She's trying to look at the facts first. And, I mean, I walked it a couple weeks ago. I could give my view of it, but, you know, we'll do that at the next meeting. Janet will, you know.
Don't put words in my mouth.
We'll add-
Mr. Chairman, I
Chris.
think we should be basing our determination on the soil samples, the
Well, hold
concrete
on.
evidence that,
Well,
council,
Chris,
please, hold your tongue for a second. We have your evidence, we'll weigh Beta's evidence, and we'll make our own decision. End of story. So, thank you for my hyperbole, but
I think we do have a comment, Fran.
Yeah. No, Lorraine?
Will the
Wait,
evidence,
wait,
will the evidence
no,
include
but-
vegetation,
No,
or are we on
I'm
soils?
at- There's somebody in the audience that's been waiting. It's up in the front.
You can come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Identify yourself, please.
Lorraine Sweeney, 14 Stop River Road. I, like most of the neighbors here, thought we were going to have an opportunity to share our feedback on the last meeting. But a lot of things have transpired that I think most of us aren't aware of. So that changes the landscape very much so. I have a question, and I'm a little confused. Your consultant, Mr. Garner, reached no conclusions but made two recommendations.
Yes.
One was that I think he said in the late winter, Area 1 should be surveyed. And he also said Area 2 should have a third party possibly go out and look at it with Mr. O'Hart's person there and make an evaluation based on that. I'm not sure how this all fits with the ZBA in that you people are looking at something as it relates to a possible violation that has nothing to do with the 40B. It has to do with other action by the ZBA back in 2017. Is that right, or am I wrong?
I don't think that is totally correct, is it, Janet? We're, possible violations, we're researching that. If we find something, we can put that under the order of conditions to the ZBA as they go forward with this project. And that's how it would work. So we have to make a determination on those areas that are of suspect. We did have Mr. Gardner go out, do some testing. He gave us his information, some recommendations. We've got this report. We're waiting from Beta, that ZBA hired, to do basically analyze the same thing with soil profiles. And once we get that together, as I said, we'll have a meeting shortly after that. We'll discuss it out in the open and make a determination.
I guess I'm still confused, though, because at the beginning of, or the outset of this meeting, you had indicated this has nothing to do with the 40B, that this was in response to concerns relative
Yes.
to a possible violation, and
Yes.
that your obligation as the commission was to look into that.
Yes, and so we'll make a determination and give it back to the ZBA and to the applicant, or to Mr. O'Hart. He's not an applicant, he's the property owner. But we'll make our determination, is there violations or not, based on all the new information we have. We have all the historical information, and we want to end this and let it get back to the ZBA, and they can do what they want.
I mean this super respectfully. I'm just trying to understand. Okay. I was thinking that the way it was going to unfold, and I could be mistaken, I recognize that, is that a determination would be made by this board based on all the information and testimony you receive, and that you might decide, no action is warranted, we don't see.
Right.
Or you might ask that an order of conditions be filed by the applicant because you do believe wetlands were altered.
No.
No, I'm saying these are different scenarios that
Okay.
are possible. No, I know you don't have any predetermined. But what I'm saying is I thought that this board would be limited to either, accepting an order of conditions or possibly, and that
Yes.
still has nothing to do with the 40B
Right.
process.
We could go back and say that definitely there were violations, here's what you need to correct, and what the action would be. Or say, no, there wasn't anything, or here they are, here's what the order of conditions we would put together. We don't think it's serious enough to have them rectified at this point, let it go through the ZBA until they complete their whole plan. If that makes sense. Somewhat.
Sort of.
It is tough because the ZBA is their charter, we have our charter. We're just looking at possible violations, and we can basically go two different routes. There is a violation, there's no violation. If there is, how severe, say a 1, 2, 3 system, do nothing, dig it all up and let it fill in with water, build a bridge. But with all of this information now, we're coming closer to being able to make that decision. And that's really what we're all trying to do here.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on the board?
I think we have to wait till we see Beta's report. I'm done, period.
Okay.
Sorry, but that's what I gotta see.
Chris first and then Short.
Just want to make sure that we don't lose focus on the issue of wetland indicator plants.
Yeah.
Because the absence of wetland indicator plants is important. So we do have firsthand knowledge regarding the absence of wetland indicator plants.
Mhm.
And we can, Mr. Crossman can testify. You heard that testimony at the last hearing. So, looking into the soils is trying to recreate.
Well, yeah, soils is one thing, plant life is another. And
Obviously, as I was trying to indicate, the board has the luxury of a conservation agent that saw the site.
okay, Dan?
I don't believe, I could be mistaken, but maybe Janet can correct me. I don't believe that the absence of vegetation, wetland vegetation, is dispositive on whether or not there's a BVW or historic BVWs in that area. Am I correct, or?
It's nice if vegetation's there. You don't always have vegetation if it's been disturbed, if it's winter time or whatever. So you've got vegetation, you also have soils. You have ice or frozen water, whatever, so.
Right. But the absence of vegetation doesn't necessarily mean there isn't, there wasn't.
But no, but I don't want a whole discussion. It could be July, you could have had a fire, you know what I mean? People could have been out there at night and picked them all. There could be reasons why you don't have vegetation, So vegetation sometimes is nice and easy and gives you a good feel, but lots of times you're without vegetation and you're still trying to work out.
So vegetation is one indicator, hydric soils are another indicator.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Drowning under 10 feet of water, that's
Okay.
another hint, so.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to make a comment?
Dave, could I just finish?
Okay.
I mean, I don't have to.
Go
I had
ahead.
some questions.
Finish your last thought.
Okay.
Watch your time. You told him
I know.
8:15.
I figured since Mr. Agostino brought all of his experts, I could ask a question. The soil suitability is it's a Title V form. It's a Form 11, and this is typically signed, actually it has to be signed by a certified soil evaluator, and I don't see it signed by anybody. In fact, Mr. Rockwood, you're not a certified soil evaluator, correct? So I'm a little concerned about, as you weigh the evidence, you've got in front of you a unsigned soil form. And I also was surprised that Mr. Rockwood was talking tonight because he wasn't there during the inspection, but I believe the other wetland scientist was there, Mr. Crossman. And while he's here, you might want to know from Mr. Crossman what his thoughts were and whether or not he agreed or disagreed with the initial findings on site by the Beta team. Just a thought.
Okay.
Mr. Crossman, and just on the form, it's a
Yeah.
form to fill out a soil profile. We
Yeah.
didn't know what we were coming into tonight. We can
Get it signed.
marshal our evidence, but
Okay.
Mr. Crossman witnessed the pit.
Hello, sir.
Good evening. Dave Crossman with B&C Associates. I was on site when the soil pits were dug. There were 4 other people looking at the soils, and I will acknowledge I'm not as familiar with the soils completely down to the minutia of looking at it like the 4 people who were there. However, based on my 30 years of experience of looking at hydric soils, when I peered into the soil pits, there was nothing there that indicated hydric soils to me. The soil's chroma appeared too bright to indicate what I typically look for as a hydric soil. But again, I deferred to the people who could tell me what every grain of sand in the pit meant. So,
Mhm.
but if I was flagging wetlands all by myself and I was seeing that soil, I would not have flagged that area as a wetland.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
I think it'd be helpful before our next meeting if we're sure that we get the beta data in time so
Yes.
that applicants, experts can have time to review it as well.
Right.
And provide us with their comments.
Yeah, I can talk to Ted.
We would appreciate
and
that. That'd be great.
We'll come up with a date that we both we feel is good.
I can come to the town hall.
Yeah. Well, I'm not here, so.
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask the ZBA whether they'd be willing to share the profile, which is just the raw data. They could put it on an unsigned Title V soil evaluation form. It's
I'll
easy. You
ask
can use it.
the chairman tomorrow. All right, then let's get that beta report into everybody's hands, and then come up with a date for a meeting, if that's agreeable. And we won't wait the 30 days. We want to do it as fast as possible. Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. Appreciate it. Thank you, Attorney Hill. All right, so that is it for the agenda for tonight. Take a motion to close?
We still need to approve, I think, the September 25th minutes.
No, we're going to, no, they just came out today, so
Okay.
we can read them at our leisure.
Okay.
So, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
You're opposed?
Pass.